The GameCube has always held a special place in my collection. It was one of the first consoles I played as a kid right next to the Wii, and I've been messing with some homebrew on it more often now. If you watched my previous videos, you know I've emulated GameCube games on my modded Switch, set up virtual console injects on my Wii U, and of course talked about ROM hacks. So in this video I'll be showing you all my modded GameCube setup as of 2026. I'll be discussing adapters like the SD to SP2, Swiss, comparing an HDMI adapter to the Wii and Wii U, testing controllers, and yes, talking about a few ROM hacks. Anyways, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and without further delay, let's get into the showcase. So here's the GameCube. It's an original DOL001 model with all the bells and whistles. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of hard mods or tearing this thing down, which is why I won't be discussing modding solutions like the Pico Loader, Flippy Drive, CubiBoot, or GC Loader. Because of that, this isn't really meant to be the best example of what a modded GameCube can be, nor is this a guide on getting everything set up. This is just how I use my console and what is the most convenient for me. So for the past few years, I've been using one of these, a basic micro SD card to memory card adapter I got for a few bucks on Amazon. I also rely entirely on using the memory card save exploit, which requires a modded Wii to inject the proper file onto your memory card and a compatible game. In my case, I used Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Despite the annoyance of booting the game up every time to get to Swiss, this actually has become a lot more convenient for me for a few reasons I'll dive into in a bit. Speaking of, Swiss is the main homebrew software and way to launch games on a modded console. Again, I'll be discussing this more later. Besides the memory card to SD adapter, I finally picked up an SD to SP2 adapter a while back. This plugs into the serial port 2 on the bottom of the GameCube, and I much prefer using it over the memory card adapter. For storage, I use a 128GB micro SD card, which of course includes all the homebrew files, games, and my memory card data as well. Also, since this model has the digital AV port, I picked up the Bitfunk's HDMI adapter, which of course uses GC video. Prior to getting this one, I've been using one of these HDMI adapters that plugs into the analog AV port. So all it did was convert the composite signal to HDMI, which meant no progressive scan for any games. This was definitely nice to use on an older TV, or while recording footage since it really looks like the original 480i image quality. But playing on bigger and newer TVs was not a good experience. There are other adapters out there like the Carby, Retrobit Prism, and Kaiko, and it does look like there was some copying here at least between the Kaiko and Bitfunk's adapters, but honestly it doesn't really matter to me so long as it lets me play in 480p on a modern TV. The image quality here is pretty good overall, and I don't really mess with the GC video settings besides changing the color profile a bit. I'll dive a bit deeper with the image quality when I get to the comparison between this, the Wii, and the Wii U. Okay, this was a pretty general overview, but I think it's better to move on to actually showing my setup on the software side. So moving over to the software, the first thing I do of course is launch the exploit to boot into Swiss. I just launch Paper Mario, let it boot in, go to the file select, then the fourth file called DOL Loader will appear, I press A, and there we go, straight into Swiss. A little while back I also saw this launcher called CubiBoot, so I decided to give that a try as well. And I love that it's pretty much the GameCube BIOS or for games on the menu. The only issue here is that it was super slow. Not sure if it's my old SD card, but this definitely made the experience less seamless, so I switched back to Swiss for now. Before I dive into my settings, I first want to show you how to replicate it. So to replicate this setup, the first thing you'll want to do is go to the Swiss GitHub and grab the latest release 7Z file. Then go into your downloads and extract it. I use 7-zip. I also just delete the original file afterwards. Next, you'll want to plug in your GameCube's SD card to your PC. So I have mine here just titled GameCube, and I have my Swiss and game folders on here already. So go into the extracted Swiss download folder, go to the folder called DOL, and grab this DOL file. Copy it and paste it onto the root of your GameCube SD card. Once it's pasted, right click and rename it to boot.dol. This file is now just the Swiss boot file. Now go back to the Swiss download folder, go to App Loader, and extract this folder called extract to root. Now you can copy the Swiss folder inside and paste it to the root of your GameCube SD card. One thing I forgot to mention is that Swiss tends to show up as a hidden folder, so if you don't see it, just click show hidden items and it should appear. Then you can go into the Swiss folder, patches, and you'll see a file called apploader.img. I'll explain this once we get back to the Swiss settings. Okay, next is setting up save data. I mentioned earlier that I keep my save data on my SD card. That's because I use an emulated memory card that stores all of my game saves and has all the blocks I could ever need. This is completely optional and is more so convenient for me since my memory cards are very small, and I got tired of dealing with the saves being stored on them. This also assumes you have your save data on Dolphin as well, with your save stored on an emulated memory card and not just GCI files. If you have GCI files, you of course can create a new emulated memory card and fill it up with them, but I won't be diving into that here. For this, you'll need Dolphin Emulator and your GameCube SD card. So, open up Dolphin, go to Tools, Memory Card Manager, click Open, and go to the appropriate folder based on your region. For me, it's USA. I only use memory card A, so I click the card A folder, and the card.a.usa.raw file shows up. So, copy the file, go to your GameCube SD card, Swiss, Saves, and paste it. While here, you'll want to rename this as well to memorycard.a.usa.raw. And that's about it. Now you can eject your SD card and put it back in your console. Now that everything is set up, booting back into Swiss, there's a few settings that I changed to get a better experience while playing through this exploit. So, going to the global settings, the first thing I do is scroll down to stop DVD drive motor and set that to yes. This automatically stops the disk from spinning once you're in Swiss since it isn't needed once the exploit is done. I really like this feature since it doesn't make the disk drive work unnecessarily and makes it so I don't have to press the open button on the console every time I launch the exploit. Next, on page 4, I set the in-game reset option to app loader. This of course relates to the setup I did earlier. This is what allows you to return directly to the Swiss menu using a button combination. So to show this working quickly, when you're in a game, here's Pac Man for example, you'll need to press Z, A, and start simultaneously, and it will take you right back to the Swiss menu. I also set load GameCube main menu to yes to get the BIOS running when loading a game, and of course I set emulate memory card to yes. Just to show this quickly as well, I've booted a game here, but since I have the BIOS on, it boots here first. And if I go to the memory card, here I have all of my saved data with over 1500 blocks left to spare. This also just makes it easier for me to transfer my data between my GameCube, Wii U, and PC since I can just copy the memory card over and rename it appropriately, and replace or delete any saves if I need to. Alright, that pretty much wraps up the software setup. Now it's time to talk about my game collection here. Before I talk about my collection of games in Swiss, I want to talk about my physical games first. As convenient as it is to have all of my games stored on an SD card, it's always nice to have some games physically, but honestly I definitely don't see myself collecting for the GameCube anytime soon. Also, physical media is more important than ever now. Most of these have been in the collection for years and I've only purchased one a few years back, and that's Super Smash Bros. Melee. I've been wanting to get this game physically again for years and I got it at my local game store for $50 back in 2024. It's in really good condition overall, but it of course is not a complete copy with the manual. So I threw in a Nintendo Power insert and console manual. I beat this game from the ground up with a new save file and unlocked all the characters, and it was so fun playing this game to complete it again instead of unlocking everything from the start and only playing regular battles. Next up is Luigi's Mansion. This case didn't have the cover insert, so I printed one out myself. It doesn't look the best here since I had to use matte photo paper, but on camera I think it looks pretty decent. This of course is one of my all-time favorite GameCube games, and the disc is in great condition as well. Next is Super Mario Sunshine. This one is in great condition as well, and it has the manual too. I just love the design of the manual here. It's one of my favorite things about owning some games physically, even though I'll probably never read the manuals in full. This also came with an Animal Crossing promo slip, pretty cool too. Next up is Mario Party 4, and this is where we get into poor condition territory. This one has Mario Party 4 and 6 inside, and the copy of Mario Party 4 is broken and doesn't work at all anymore. Mario Party 6 on the other hand, despite its pretty scuffed condition with scratches all over, does still work. These two are some of my favorite Mario Party games, and while it's nice to have them physically, the fact one of them doesn't work is a real shame. Moving on, here's WarioWare Inc. This game is in great condition but doesn't have the manual. It does have this insert though. I played this game so much as a kid, and it's still my favorite WarioWare game. Next up is Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. This is a complete copy with the manual, and most of the time I just leave the disc in the console ready for the save game exploit. Though honestly, I haven't really played this game much at all lately, so it's definitely one I'll be playing very soon. And finally, to round out the collection, here's Sonic Mega Collection. This one is in excellent condition with the manual as well. So this is definitely a small collection, but honestly I don't really feel the need to collect any more games here. There are a few I have on my radar like Super Mario Strikers and Sonic Adventure DX and 2 Battle, but besides that I'm fine with this. Anyway, it's time to move over to Swiss and talk about my games on there. Since I have a pretty big SD card, I of course had to fill it up with a bunch of games, a lot of which I likely will never fully play, but I've pretty much got all that I could want for the time being. I of course have some ROM hacks on here too, some work great and some don't. That's just how it is when playing on original hardware sometimes, but it's really cool regardless. So I've recently been playing games like NBA Street Volume 3,
Okay, the handle is tight, but we got a game going on.
SSX On Tour, Sonic Adventure 2 since I recently beat the first game, Spiderman 2, and some games I've been meaning to get to for a while like Pac Man World 2 and Metroid Prime 2. This is just scratching the surface, and there's so many more games that I play a ton and games I'm yet to check out, but I absolutely love the GameCube library, and being able to play all of these games on original hardware was something I couldn't even fathom a few years ago. Speaking of, that reminds me of the image quality of these games here. I think it looks pretty good for the original hardware. So it's time to compare the GameCube HDMI adapter to the two best alternatives, the Wii and Wii U. So to look a bit closer at the image quality, I captured footage from 3 specific games: Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Eclipse, and The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Starting out with Luigi's Mansion, I'll just be going straight into a side-by-side comparison between all 3 systems here. To the left is the GameCube, the middle is the Wii, and to the right is the Wii U. So taking a look side by side in the foyer with Luigi here, I've got to be honest, this really comes down to personal preference here. There's minor differences between the 3, but I did notice the colors being slightly darker on the GameCube, and the image being a bit softer on the Wii. I tested on the Wii with an HDMI adapter as well. However, there's even less noticeable differences when looking at the GameCube and Wii U. Moving on to The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, this game is pretty much the same case. There isn't much of a difference between the 3 images besides some minor color and sharpening. And if you're gonna play Wind Waker on the Wii U, I'd say it's just better to play the HD version. Moving on to the final game here, Super Mario Eclipse. For this one, I decided to adjust the color profile in the GC video settings, and I think here it does look a bit better in terms of the HUD elements since they looked a bit too bright at first, and they definitely do on the Wii U. I'd say the Wii is slightly better in this case. But again, these are minor differences. Also, I'll be talking about this game again in the ROM hack segment. So going by this comparison, I'd say they are all good options. But if I absolutely had to pick one, I'd just pick the GameCube here. However, the most convenient solution here I'd say is the Wii, with the Wii U being a close second. I would easily recommend those two far more than the GameCube for a ton of reasons, but largely for their modding capabilities. For now though, let's move on. Alongside the HDMI adapter, I also wanted to modernize the way I actually play these games. I picked up an 8BitDo retro receiver to plug into the controller port, and this lets you pair a ton of controllers through Bluetooth. So I of course wanted to try out a few and see if they are good alternatives to the GameCube controller. But before that, I really wanted to try out their Bluetooth Modkit. This kit has pretty much everything you need to convert your old controller into a Bluetooth controller, with support for modern platforms like the Switch and PC of course. So I grabbed my old Smash Ultimate controller and went to work. I got this controller back in 2020. It's actually a Japanese import since that was the only listing I could find that was at a good price then, and it's still in decent shape. I have it with a 2-tone shell, with the back half being a white Extreme Rate shell. The only issue is that the rumble wires broke off, so I was hoping to get that fixed here. The disassembly is really simple. The GameCube controller has always been one of the easiest controllers to tear down in my opinion, but cleaning the inside was a bit tricky. Some 99% isopropyl alcohol did the job pretty well though. So I actually didn't get footage of me assembling the controller with the new board, so I'll be skipping over that. But this is the final result. This looks great, and I think it's a good alternative to any wavebird replacements or third-party Bluetooth GameCube style controllers. The sticks do click in our Hall effect, the Z button is clicky, and it supports hotkeys for the home and back button if you use it on the Switch. And everything else feels pretty much identical to the OEM controller. Pairing this up with the retro receiver is pretty much flawless, and this is the only controller I actually play my GameCube games with now. So I kind of answered my own question regarding finding better alternatives that are wireless. This honestly is it. But there's still a few controllers I want to test here, so let's move on. First up is the PS4 controller. This is a decent option since it does have those analog triggers, though the layout takes a bit of getting used to, especially for me since I'm used to every console's button layout for their specific use case, if that makes sense. Next, I tried the Wii U Pro Controller. This one felt surprisingly natural for standard titles, mostly because the face button spacing is relatively compact, and the battery life on these is still incredible. However, the digital triggers do make it a bit harder to use with some games. Moving on to an 8-bit Do controller, here I have the first generation Ultimate controller. This worked flawlessly of course. The build quality is excellent, I love the buttons and sticks on this one, and it's become one of my favorites. And I got it for a great price at around $25. This does have analog triggers, but I paired it in the Bluetooth mode, which is the Nintendo Switch mode, so they acted like digital triggers. I also threw a bit of a curveball and tested the 8-bit Do N64 controller. While this does work, the layout is obviously not built for the GameCube library, and the buttons seem a bit out of whack. So I honestly don't know what games I would recommend this for. Finally, I tested the Switch Pro controller. This of course is a pretty good option. The ergonomics are great and I had no issues with button mapping. But similar to the Wii U Pro controller, the lack of analog triggers leaves a bit to be desired. So, how about Dolphin? Why not just use that over the original hardware? Well, I actually play on Dolphin all the time, and in many ways it's my preferred way to play GameCube and Wii games because of how much you can do with it. Like, use any controller you want. Cheats, more compatibility with ROM hacks and mods, HD texture packs, etc. It's actually what I use to record most of my footage for ROM hack videos since it's just so much quicker to launch OBS and record the window, rather than setting up the consoles and using my capture card. It's overall an excellent experience, and I've been using Dolphin for nearly 10 years now since I discovered it on Android back in 2017. But using GameCube controllers on here was always a bit of a hassle. I'd have to go grab my May flash adapter I use on Wii U and Switch, save 2 USB ports on my PC, and deal with the wires from the adapter plus the controller cord just to play for like an hour anyway and put everything back afterwards. So to bridge that gap and make things way easier, I now just use the GameCube controller with the 8-bit Do Modkit, plus the retro receiver plugged in via USB. The experience here is completely flawless. It has both full support for rumble and analog triggers, and it makes jumping back and forth between playing games on PC and playing them directly on the original console feel pretty seamless. Overall, I would say Dolphin is the better way to play GameCube games now, but I still like to keep a balance between emulation and playing on original hardware. So now it's time to talk about some ROM hacks. I'll be discussing 3 in this video that I feel like I should highlight again, though one of these I have not covered yet. Also, for the part 3 to GameCube ROM hacks, I have plenty of hacks I'll be covering in that video, and these 3 I feel don't need to be in it, so I'll just be mentioning them here. Also, all of these work decently well on original hardware, and I did record a majority of my footage here on the GameCube. Anyhow, let's get into it. Mario Kart Double Dash Plus is a mod for Mario Kart Double Dash, of course, that adds a total of 64 retro tracks and 24 retro battle courses, as well as 200cc and 4-player Grand Prix. I covered Mario Kart Double Dash Extended in my first GameCube ROM hacks episode, and while I love that hack, I have to say I vastly prefer this one after playing it over the past few months, and would recommend it as a go-to Double Dash hack. It just has so much more in terms of content. It adds tracks like N64 Royal Raceway, DS Figure 8 Circuit, Coconut Mall, DS Shroom Ridge, and so much more. It does use the original music for all of them as well, which I don't mind honestly. Also, the 4-player Grand Prix of course includes CPUs. I noticed it does slow down a bit while playing on the GameCube, which I think is expected since there's so many racers on screen on top of rendering custom tracks, but I think it's still very playable. I was playing alone here while recording this footage, but you get the idea. This is just so good for local co-op. Also, one big issue while playing on the GameCube is that trying to play Mushroom Gorge does crash the game. The battle courses also really surprised me. I never played battle mode in Double Dash, but seeing so many tracks like the Nintendo DS, N64 Block Fort, and Wii Delfino Pier to name a few is just awesome. Overall, definitely give this hack a try. It's been my go-to Double Dash hack for a while now, and I love it. I do still like to play some Double Dash Extended once in a while, and of course Retro Track Grand Prix, but I'll be covering that one in part 3 to GameCube ROM hacks, so I'll be saving discussing it until then. Luigi's Mansion Premium Deluxe. I covered this in my Luigi's Mansion ROM hacks video, so this is a bit of a rehash of that segment, but I feel like I need to mention this hack again since it's one of my favorites. This, in my opinion, is the definitive way to play the original game, and my favorite way to come back to it as of late. It adds so many quality of life features in Premium Deluxe settings, such as adjusting the difficulty between normal, POW hard mode, and 3DS expert mode, turning on the overheat meter for the poltergust, changing the way chests open, skipping all events like EGAT calls and boot catching saving, mirror mode which flips the entire mansion, changing the mushrooms to either the regular poison mushroom or healing one, adjusting the poltergust strength, native 16:9 widescreen support, and a few more quality of life settings like changing the lighting and ghost shading. I personally like going with the LMPD setting for the lighting and Proto for the ghost shading. You can also walk around EGAT's lab. Once you beat the game, you can walk over to this book in the lab and activate a new feature for the poltergust. If you can tell, this hack adds a ton of features, and you can customize them to your liking before starting the game. However, every time you boot up the game, you have to readjust them. The core of the game remains pretty much unchanged, but it does add some new enemies like the Chef Ghost, and even a shortcut in the foyer to go straight into Area 3. Overall, really good changes. This hack makes Luigi's Mansion so much more enjoyable, and being able to change game-altering settings whenever you like can add a bit more variety to each playthrough. And I'd say it's my personal favorite Luigi's Mansion ROM hack. Super Mario Eclipse. I honestly don't know what I can say about this game that hasn't already been said. This is the definitive Sunshine experience. Regarding its content, it adds 120 new shines to the game, bringing the total to 240. Plus 3 new playable characters to use after beating the game: Luigi, Il Piantissimo, and Shadow Mario. It also adds new movement mechanics and configurable settings for 60 FPS, widescreen, camera controls, and more. Personally, I always play as Luigi, and since he has a signature floaty physics, it feels great to play as him. But Piantissimo, while not having Flood, does have a higher jump and runs way faster than the others. And Shadow Mario, of course, has his paintbrush. The new level and bonus stage designs here are great, the custom music is phenomenal, and while personally Sunshine is nowhere near my favorite Mario game, this hack just makes it so much better, and I actually enjoyed playing through it. Also, my preferred way to play this hack is of course in Dolphin with 60 FPS. It is playable on the GameCube, but it does have some pretty noticeable slowdown in some areas from my experience. Definitely check this out if you haven't yet. It's one of the best ROM hacks on the GameCube, and I can't recommend it enough. So to wrap things up, would I say a modded GameCube is worth it? Personally, I'm in the middle here. Don't get me wrong, I love the GameCube and I love playing my games on here, but I think if you want to play these games on real hardware, a modded Wii or modded Wii U are just significantly better options. Because both are backwards compatible, more so the Wii since it can take discs and memory cards if you have the RVL001 model, they can play your entire GameCube library pretty much flawlessly while offering so much more overall in terms of homebrew apps, modern video output, and of course modding potential. I think it's a lot more convenient to just get a Wii, mod it, get a cheap HDMI adapter, and play your GameCube games that way. On top of that, you'll have the ability to play the entire Wii library. But that's just my opinion. So that's about all I have for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you all soon.